My name is Jorge and I want to tell you a story. Although I don't know if I will see it published, this happened to me and my brother. When we were children from a region of lakes, particularly towards the coast, these regions are well known for paranormal cases, for legends. I have many stories to tell about my parents, which have even been passed from generation to generation, but this will be for another time. Today I am going to tell you only what happened to me. What happened perhaps is based in a well-known story in my region, alluding to the woman with wet black hair, bare feet and in a white coat. That specter that represents a woman who appears to children in order to take them. Since according to what is said, she lost her newborn son and was so traumatized that she hanged herself. She always appears trying to take them away, since the children remind her of her dead son. In the months of September, when winter is disappearing here and the afternoons are very long. In those dates, commonly at 6 in the afternoon, it is already dark in September. One weekend with my 3 brothers, it occurred to us to go play in the swampy puddles. This is the name for a humid place where there are puddles of water in the grass. In that place sometimes there are herons and ducks, a lot of swamp grass. We divided into 2 teams, and it was my turn with my little brother. The idea of this game was simply to look for living gold in a village called Creek. In the history books it was known due to the extraction of gold. In this land the Mapuches of the place extracted it. And in fact many times we found gold nuggets in the river that passed about 200 meters from my house. That day we began to dig underneath in that place where they supposedly accumulate the gold nuggets. After a while we found nothing. We moved from the place to where there were many mounds, since according to my grandparents some beet crops were once planted there. We began to dig and at first we found that it was very easy to break the dirt. With one kick I could take out entire mounds and we began to find strange holes. Since the place is not a rabbit zone, it is too humid. We made several holes and desperate to see who would be the first to find one, we came across a spring of water that began to come out, as if it were a tap, and a small channel was formed that reached the river. In reality we found a spring. We continued working around for in the afternoon and suddenly, one of my brothers found stones. As soon as he told us we approached that place. Together as a single team, a team of researchers, we began to dig next to the channel that had been formed. And we found enormous stones so big that we could not remove them, only some of the small stones. As shortly after we found black earth and some pieces of long iron. We were motivated to investigate what was below, until under a mound we found sacks and bags among the stones. We were scared, a cemetery, said my older sister, while with one of the irons tore the bag, and we all stared, looking at what was inside, something black. We opened it completely and realized that they were black feathers, many black feathers, and in the background you could see what looked like bones. The strange thing, the thing is that the feathers were in perfect condition, as if they had not been buried there for who knows how long. We took out the bag and emptied the earth. It was very black. Round when we emptied it, what we found was a bird. A crow that we assumed was the bag was full of them. We received the scattered remains and suddenly, we heard a whistle in the distance. It was our mother who called us to eat. It was 6 in the afternoon. When she ordered me something, it was the law. So we ran quickly through a grove of trees. What we had to get home, and we told our parents what we were discovering. My grandfather got angry and said, I don't like them tearing up the earth. Stop digging holes and go finish eating, as it was getting dark. My mother told us to go to look for the tools that we left behind because these could be stolen. Obviously no one wanted to go, so Mom sent the 2 oldest to us. We looked for some bags to bring back one of the things we had found, and we left quickly. The swamp had become very large and covered everything we had discovered. The earth settled again and we lost the progress we had made. Of all the holes that were made, only a fairly large lagoon remained in the place. We went into the water with boots. We collected all the tools that were floating, since they were some made of wood, and upon returning, I must clarify that my brother was 16 years old. We walked through the trees, and in the largest tree we saw movement. There is someone there. Wait, said my brother. While he took him by the arm, we remained motionless. And seconds later we heard someone behind one of the trees. He complained. We began to walk very slowly with bags dragging, as we approached and saw what seemed to be white robes. And then a woman who was attached to the tree, completely soaked. Her hair, her clothes, It was a kind of very white nightgown. Old man torn and battered, and his hair did not allow us to see his face, only his nose showed. And at that time his eyes were no longer well defined. After the shock we got a little closer, and he stretched out his hand to us. He looked very complaining and tired. I think he can't move, and he was there with his hand outstretched. While we thought he needed help, but he didn't speak. Today I think about it, and that was like watching something out of the movie. Exactly like some horror scene. So we stayed frozen for a moment without being able to do anything. Without being able to react, and all you could hear was her breathing, anguished, agitated. It was a fear that I couldn't react to, and obviously they asked me thousands of questions that I couldn't answer. But the main question, it was what that woman was doing there at that time. Suddenly my brother reacted and screamed very loudly, "She's a witch, she's a witch." We dropped everything we had and ran. We got home in a matter of minutes, and that night we didn't. We were able to sleep. My parents, I suppose that, when they saw how we arrived crying with fear, they forgave us for having lost all the tools. They did not scold us. I think that when they saw us they did not hesitate to believe that what we saw was real, because they actually saw our suffering. My grandfather only said that the next day at dawn, he would go get the tools. Later we only knew that my grandfather had recovered the bags, and after that it flooded after several days. Meanwhile we did not leave the house safely to go to study during the week. We always remember what happened that day, and now that I am 30 years old, I have not yet gone to that precise place again. Today the place is covered with bushes and fruit trees, we believe. We believe that the day we uncovered something buried in the place. We still remember the woman. That woman who was very wet, and maybe she left that place. Maybe we released our death. Obviously these are just assumptions, we will never know. But when I watch a movie, horror reminds me a lot of what I experienced. This story may not cause much fear, but it is something real. It is not a myth. They did not tell me. If I went back today, I don't know if I could dig out of that place. I don't know what would we find down there. It could be indigenous constructions. It could be a cemetery. On some occasion I will tell you more stories about my family from that region. Greetings from the town of the lakes on the coast.